I'm Noah Rubnitz for GALvanize, and I'm so honored and excited to unveil the woman behind it all. Sarah Bergstrom might have shifted careers, but one thing didn't change: her activism and fight for equality. From working for the NFL Network and Players Tribune to kindergarten teacher and leading a foundation. Sarah, I'm going to ask a little about your do, but let's start with your who. You told me that you're driven by purpose. What is that purpose?
Yeah, I think it took me a while to find that purpose. I think for a lot of us, purpose starts as a passion. And I think for, a long time in my life, I would have described it as just a passion. I had a joy for working with kids. I had a joy for being involved in communities where I felt that I could give back, especially kids kind of access their potential. And for me, that was in Haiti. That was in Los Angeles when I was in school in California. And then as I grew older and kind of grew into my career, I realized that it has to be more than a passion. I was doing a career that was very fun, but pretty unfulfilling. And I realized that the reason behind that, because I didn't have purpose. I didn't have purpose in my day-to-day job. And finding that and knowing that it was working with students, working to change the achievement gap in school, the opportunity gap in schools was really big for me. And once I kind of found that purpose and knew that I could do that as my full-time job, that was everything to me. And so the purpose that kind of drives me is working to make sure that all children have access to incredible education that meets them where they're at, that sees them full of potential, that opens doors for them. And whether that's in the classroom or, like you mentioned, through a foundation, that's definitely the purpose that's been driving me the last couple of years.
I mean, from covering Super Bowls to teaching kindergarten, so many people say they wish they could quit their job and follow their passion, and few do it. So do you miss anything from that previous world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think luckily I've been able to kind of keep a foot in that world. Managing Pittsburgh Steelers offensive tackle Zach Spanner's foundation has allowed me to kind of stay in the sports world. And so I don't think I've had to quit that entirely. But no, honestly, I haven't. And I think for some people that's hard to explain. Because like you said, I think people look at being sideline of a Super Bowl or working with professional athletes or going to the ESPYs as like the peak. But for me, and there's a lot of meaning in that for some people, and there is, but for me, my meaning was knowing that each day what I was going to work and to do was something that I could go home at night and say, yeah, what I did today helped change someone's life for the better. If I'm going to complain about stuff that I'm seeing, I better be willing to actually do something about it. And I think that was the difference maker for me. I couldn't just sit around anymore and ask, why are things the way that they are, if I wasn't going to contribute in some way.
So now that you have kind of transitioned into becoming a leader within this foundation led with also Zach Boehner's foundation, what is ZB3's purpose?
Bringing together, building together, better together. We really felt, and it's very true to Zach's personal story, that community is everything in developing a well-rounded child that's going to give back and become a leader in their world. If you're surrounded by community, your family, your school, your neighborhood, people who care about you, adults that care about you, you are going to grow up to be someone who does the same and gives back. And so we wanted to take that approach, and we knew that we wanted to support students academically, but also, through their character and through their development as community members. And so the mission there is to work in under-resourced communities. We kind of identified the main three for Zach, which is Tacoma, where he grew up, Los Angeles, where he went to school, and Guam, where his mom is from, and he has a very close connection to the island. So we wanted to work within the community with people and organizations who are already doing great work and support what they're doing, whether that's financially, whether that's by adding programming or bringing Zach in. And in the last 3 years, we've seen that grow. It includes mentorship, it includes school supply drives, and pretty soon it'll include a scholarship program as well. So it's been amazing to see kind of that original idea really blow up and be something that we can live into.
I mean, you work with a Black man who recently became very active within the Jewish faith, thanks to a tremendous video he posted as an ally. But your work with the ZB3 Foundation has been about transforming from the inside out, right? And I mean, you're not Black, you're not Jewish. So what's been the biggest lesson you've learned from being an ally from the outside in?
Absolutely. Man, it's a great question. I think, all of us are on a journey of becoming better allies. If this year has taught us anything, it's asking ourselves to look in the mirror and see what we can do. And I think a big part of being an ally, and what I've learned in working with Zach, is you have to be able to be uncomfortable. You have to be able to listen, because I'm not going to understand the experiences that Zach's had. I'm not going to understand the experiences that our friends in the Jewish community have had. I'm not going to understand the experiences my students have had. But that doesn't mean that I can't bring empathy into those conversations, that I can't remember to just listen first and wait to respond and be patient in kind of how I want to respond. And that doesn't mean that I can't begin to embrace that. Like, I think a great example is Zach, jumping in and trying challah bread. I mean, it's very silly and it's, just a food thing, but there's so much power in just starting to learn about someone else's culture by saying like, okay, like, let's try it out. And I think, that's such a big part, is just being willing to kind of go outside your comfort zone, have fun. And then I've just been grateful for the embrace of, for us recently, the Jewish community, to Zach's learning, but also to me as well, as I've, had conversations with some of the rabbis in Pittsburgh and other members of the community that Zach has kind of networked with, as well as the Black community in Tacoma here in LA. I mean, even as an educator in a community that my school is 99% students of color, actually mostly Hispanic and South American students. It's a lot of just learning and coming with humility and, sharing what you're there for, and then kind of, building those relationships very authentically with families. And so it's very similar in our work with B3.
And to wrap things up here, sports and social justice have never been arguably more integrated in the last decade until now. So why is this moment so important?
It's important that we, as a nation, as a world, really listen to what matters. I think it's a time to say there's something a lot bigger than football. There's something a lot bigger than basketball. We need to understand systemically the issues that are facing us as a country. And these players have a platform to speak from. They have an amazing ability to make change. And it's time that, we stop tuning in as just fans. And if you really care about the team that you support or the players that you support, then you better be listening when they're telling you the things that matter and the things that are going on in their own communities. And we've seen that as a great example with Zach, that people want to listen and people want to support. And there's a lot of learning to be done. So I think it's an amazing time to see some change happen locally, but on a national level as well.
Sarah Bergstrom, thank you so much for doing your part in changing the world. I'm so impressed with your do, but I'm even more amazed by your who. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Noah.